Today it's March the 14th, 2013, and we're participating in the Des Brisets Museum's oral history program, Reaching Out to Seniors. I'm Marion Gaetan, and my guest today is Betty Rhodenizer, who is going to talk to us about her experiences growing up in the town of Bridgewater. Now, Betty, I understand you were born here in Bridgewater.
Yes, I was born in Bridgewater. The 7th of June, 1932.
1932, okay. And where exactly in Bridgewater were you born?
Well, I was born on Aberdeen Road.
Okay.
At the old riding home, the Stanley Riding Home, which now you will see the Argyle Inn.
Oh, okay.
It was the Mariner Motel, but now it's the Argyle Inn.
Okay.
And so there's where the old riding homestead was located, and that's where I was born.
Okay. Well, what's your first memory?
My first memory, I think I have a number of first memories, because I can remember when Stan Roding would come to our home and go upstairs in this particular room where he had stored furniture and all memorabilia and things like that. And I can remember going up there and trying to peek into the room while he was there, me and my sister, and we would be very curious about what was there, but we were never allowed in, and he kept it well locked up when he wasn't there. And I think at that time he may have lived in the States. I'm not quite sure about that. But his wife Mary had a little store on the corner of Aberdeen Road and North Street, which became the Little Red Restaurant later on. But before that, it was operated. It was bought and operated by the Starretts. Carl Starrett. And that was one of the memories I have. Another memory was about the orchard, the beautiful orchard that all kinds of apples and pears and it was my favorite was the russet apple and the Gravenstein and the pears that we used to get from grapes and things like that. It was a wonderful old estate.
It's amazing right here, what we consider town, hey?
Yes, well, then it was in the town limits, but at that time we could raise pigs and chickens and things like that. Today you can't.
Yeah. And now your family eventually moved from there to 304 Aberdeen Road.
Yes, that was just below the old estate, down across the field on the same side of the road. And at that time there were no paved roads there on Aberdeen Road, no paved roads. And so at the age of 3, our home was ready to live in. So I can remember just carrying my little chair down to the new home.
Yeah.
I can also remember stealing nails from the nail kegs, and me and my friend, who was Gerald Oliver, as a matter of fact, we used to call him Topsy, and we would steal these nails, and we would go in the woods and with a little rock and pound the nails. And of course we weren't very successful, but the carpenter, he used to watch us and chase us away from the nail kegs. So those are those are things that I remember mostly, except for the barn and the contents of the barn there, which were old carriages and very interesting old carriages, and one even looked like Santa's sleigh. They were very, very magnificent. And those are the things that I remember when I was only that, so very, very young.
Now, when you moved into the house, who would actually live there in the house?
Well, it would have been my mom and dad
Mhm.
and my older sister Ruth.
Okay.
Yeah, she was born in 1929.
And what was sort of like the setup of the house? You know, there was like a front room, I assume?
Oh, yes. Going in the front door, there would be a hallway that led straight through to the kitchen, and then to the left there was the living room, and then the dining room behind that. It was just a square type of. It was called a hip roof house. That's what it was called, with the veranda on the front, and bedroom was out over the veranda.
Upstairs.
Upstairs, yes, there were 3 bedrooms upstairs and the bathroom. Of course, the bathroom didn't become a bathroom until quite a number of years later.
Okay.
Yes.
So what kind of heating system would there be within the house?
Well, at first there would have been wood. There was a wood stove and a cooking stove in the kitchen, and then there would have been a living room sort of. That was in the hallway, as I remember, just a stove to heat the rest of the house. And of course, in the wintertime, it was very, very cold upstairs.
Yes.
Very cold when we went to bed. But anyway, later on, then, there was a wood furnace put in the house with a register, and we'd stand on the register and get nice and warm, and sometimes too warm.
Yeah.
Then we would step away from and then freeze. So, but of course now there's oil.
So I would assume your mother did the washing of the clothes and that.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes. At that time it was a big tub, big round tub, and with the scrubbing board. Yes.
Yes, and then hung outside probably.
Yes, even when I was married,
Yeah.
at first I started out that way, scrubbing by. It doesn't seem possible
That's
in
right, yeah.
that year.
Were there any particular things that you used to do with your father?
Yes, we would go fishing in a little brook. In the Miller property, there was a lot of property right there that belonged to a Miller. I'm not quite sure what his first name was, but we would go down through the woods and we'd hook up with this. Well, of course, the brook runs across Aberdeen Road right below my house anyway, and that goes straight down through that property. But of course, it's now all subdivision. So, but at that time, there was a cabin, an old cabin down there. We were excited to investigate, and also we, as we walked through the woods, we would run around picking lady slippers and trilliums and other ferns and so on, and just had a wonderful time. It was a nice family time together, and we fished a little bit. And then at Christmas time, Dad would take Ruth and I down through the same woods and pick ourselves a Christmas tree. Of course, that's not allowed today. That's against the law. But nobody cared at that time. You could go in the woods and just do that.
Okay. Did you have any particular chores or anything that you had to do around the house, or?
Not really. We helped with the dishes. We did the dishes, but as far as the other things, Mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she looked after the household, did all the cooking and cleaning, and of course, spring and fall were the house cleaning times. Well, we may have helped a bit when we got older, with some of the house cleaning, but other than that, we did. I used to help my dad with piling in the wood. Yes, in the basement.
How about, when did you get a phone in the house?
That would have been in the 50s. That it was a long time before we got a phone, and then it was a party line, 4-party line, until we eventually got a private line. And then the telephone was one of those cradle type, actually it was a stand-up telephone with a hook that you put the receiver on.
Okay.
Yes, like a little microphone, and it was a long with a stand at the bottom. That was the first telephone that we had.
Okay. I suppose TV was a long time coming, wasn't
yes. TV was not until in the 50s when my dad got a... That was after I was married that he got... And that's about the time that they came into the area.
Oh, okay.
And Dad always said when TV came, he was going to be one of the first ones to have one, so...
Okay. Now, you talked about your outdoor activities, when you were younger, playing in the orchard and all the rest of it. And actually, you told quite a lot of the things that you did. Were there any particular games that you played or anything?
Well, the usual for little kids, cowboys and Indians, and we'd play hide and go seek, and in the evenings in the summertime, when it was started to get dark, or when it was dark and a beautiful evening out there with the stars and the moon and the fireflies, and we would go racing after the fireflies, yes, and catching them, and then to see what they looked like. They were actually ugly-looking little bugs, but they were so pretty out in the field. We did skate. Yes, we did skate, and we tobogganed.
Where would you skate at?
Well, the first places that we skated was at a little pond back behind the Twining Meldrum home in Oak Hill, the very first house I think it was then in Oak Hill. And then there was a big marsh back in Oak Hill, just across from the old schoolhouse. But later on, then we went, my sister and I, when we were a little older, we each Friday evening, we would get ourselves ready, bundle ourselves up, because at that time, you see, there was no artificial ice.
Oh, okay.
And so it depended on the weather to freeze the ice. And so we would get ourselves all bundled up in beautiful starry moonlight night, and sometimes it was snowing, and we would trudge on up to the exhibition building where there was just sometimes maybe of course on a crisp night, then we'd have good skating. Sometimes if it was a little bit milder, there would be a little bit of water on the ice. But we would skate to the waltzes and the band music, and really enjoy a 2-hour evening, and then trudge on home so tired that we could hardly get up over the hill. But it was a 2-mile walk from where we lived on Aberdeen up to Dufferin, the top of Dufferin Hill. So it was a long way to walk, and we had a mile walk, just about a mile walking to school as well.
So you went to school at the old Bridgewater?
Well, at first I went to school for 1 year at the Oak Hill School, yes, and because Mom and Dad didn't like to see us walking over the bridge, because at that time there were no barriers except for those railings, and they were, quite far apart, the railings were. But eventually we had to do it, and we made out okay.
So you did walk to school then?
Yes, we did walk to school, and I can't ever remember of staying home for a snow day. We trudged to school in all the snowstorms, even if it was up to our waist, we went there. But But then in the wintertime, we did take our lunch with us.
Mm-hmm.
In the summertime, we trudged all the way home. We had an hour and a half for lunch break.
Yeah.
So we trudged home, and then right back, gulped down our meal, and away we went again. So that was in the summertime. Yeah, good weather.
Yeah, kids don't realize how well they have it today.
Yes, yes. No buses at that time.
Any favorite subjects in school?
Well, up to, on the primary grades, up to grade 6, just about all the subjects I did well in. I suppose English and spelling. I really enjoyed spelling. Yes. Yes.
What would the class sizes be like? Were there?
Well, there were probably 30, maybe 32, something like that in each class. And my first teacher was Miss Mailman, Ruby Mailman.
Mm-hmm.
My second one was Mary Mailman.
Okay.
And then there was Ollie Dolliver, who had also taught my father,
Ooh.
and then later on she taught my son as well.
She was there a long time.
She was there a long time, yes. They were very good teachers. And Monica Penny, who married a Pence. And and at that time, the elementary school was in the annex building across from the big schoolhouse where the junior and senior high were located. Then later on, the annex became the junior high school, and then there was a senior high school built. I'm not quite sure. Around 1952, they moved into Davis Memorial School, I know.
Yeah.
But that's later.
Any special memories about school time?
Well, I do remember A.G.G. Hurtle was the principal one of the principals at that time, and he was a fine man, yeah, real gentleman, and he loved the kids, and he used to visit our classrooms periodically and give us little talks, talks of encouragement, and talks that made us really feel good. And he said one time, and it always stuck in my mind, he said, there is not enough money in the world to buy any one of you. And of course that made us, I don't know if those were the exact words he said, but to the gist of it. And
really feel good about yourself.
yes, and of course we were really puffed up after he left our classrooms. And another, in junior high school, I can remember Ina Mullock was her name, and she later on married a Mackenzie. And I can remember her saying, "Think twice and speak once."
Good advice.
Yes, yes. I had many good memories of school and playing softball and dancing, going to the dances and playing badminton, and so.
Now, by the time you got into junior high or high school, you would have had a younger sister by now, eh?
Well, she was born in 1950. Yes.
Yes. And you had mentioned at one time something about her name and school or something.
Yes. There was a girl who I went to school with, and that was in senior high. And her name was Helen. Helen Hebb, as a matter of fact. And her mother was of Scandinavian origin, and her name was Helga.
Mhm.
So when my sister Helga came along in 1950, I was just about 18 years of age. And would you like to know the story of,
Yes.
When she was born?
Mhm.
Oh, oh, by the way, Helen's mother was named Helga, if I hadn't mentioned that. Mom and Dad had a small store just outside the house, a little convenience store, a little grocery store. And around about, that was in the late 40s and in the 50s. And he finally bought a car. He hadn't had a car since he was, I think, probably in his teens. And he bought this Austin, and really enjoyed having a car. Mom stayed mostly in the store, and she always wore a smock in the store. And my sister stayed home and kept, my older sister stayed home and kept house, made the meals, and did all these things while Mom stayed in the store. And there was this one Saturday night, I was working part-time because I was still going to school, working part-time at Lehman Shoe Store. And Mom came into the house, according to my sister Ruth, because I was working at the time. And she came into the house, went upstairs and got a bag, and she went down and she got in the car. And then Dad came in and said to my sister Ruth, he says, "I'm taking your mother to the hospital." He said, I imagine you already know that there's going to be an addition to the family. But she didn't know. Neither one of us knew that Mom was pregnant. And so, of course, little Helga was born prematurely, 4 pounds, 4.5 ounces, something like that. And so we were all excited about it. My sister Ruth called me at the store, and she says, "Guess what, Mom? Mom went to the hospital, had a baby." Couldn't believe it. Just couldn't believe it. And of course, it was very difficult to work for the rest of the evening because we were, at that time, we were closed on Wednesday afternoons and open. The only evening we were open was on Saturday evening until 10 o'clock. So it was a very exciting time, and it was up to my sister and I to name the baby.
Okay.
So we thought, how nice. Helen's mother was named Helga, and we thought, oh, we would love to have her named Helga. So we named her Helga, and we made up a name, not Colleen, but Colleen, K-A-L-E-N-A, and so that's what we named her. Yes.
She was very fortunate to have you name her, eh?
Yes. She was in the hospital for a couple of weeks before she was allowed to come home.
So there were activities, perhaps a lot more activities that go on in Bridgewater then than perhaps that then go on now, hey? There was always something going on in the river? Or?
Well, each year there was a water carnival. And there was a beauty pageant and so on, and different water sports and activities, and procession of boats and so on. And I can remember the beauty queen, and they were bathing suit contest. Yes. And of course at that time there was no parkway. It was just a very large bank, and everybody just sat on the little knolls all over the bank and watched the proceedings. Yes, it was very nice.
Now, at this time, you used to still see oxen and wagons?
Oh,
go?
yes,
Yeah.
periodically, yes. And quite often at that
Mm-hmm.
time, you'd see ox teams go through town, and you'd see the results on the roads too. And horse and wagon, yes, they weren't uncommon,
Yeah.
but they gradually phased
Phased
out,
out,
yes.
yeah.
But even in the 50s, I can remember that there were a couple of horse and wagons, perhaps more, but I can remember a couple of them. I know there was one, there was a Falkenham family who went to town in their horse and wagon and always stopped at the little store on their way to Oak Hill.
Uh-huh.
And then there was a gentleman from Branch-LaHave, used to go with his little Surrey with the fringe on top. He'd make his little trips from Branch-LaHave to Blockhouse to see his girlfriend, and he was quite an elderly gentleman.
Oh, dear. So, like, okay, your family had the store, but like, how would they go about getting their supplies for the store, or even their own groceries for the home?
Well, my dad worked at Rayfuse and Eisner's for 35 years until it was sold to John Tobin. I think they called it Atlantic Wholesalers then. And of course, there were different other people who brought, like Ben's brought. But Dad got a lot of groceries from the wholesale naturally,
Oh, okay.
and so, but and then there was ice cream delivery, and after a while it became well known and well known in the store. So there would be travelers coming and so on, and to take orders for things.
Now, how about if, I know, like, your mother had the delivery, etc., but how about if you had medical problems? Did you would have a family doctor, or?
Yes, we did have family doctor at that time.
Yeah.
Yes, but actually, when I was growing up, I can't remember of going to a doctor.
Okay, that's good.
I can't remember going to a doctor, except a dentist. I remember going to a dentist and having my teeth removed rather than filled. They had just had them pulled out. Yes, pulled out, which was unfortunate. But later on, I did have a doctor. He was Dr. Bennett, but that was probably when I had my son, and. But we didn't go to the doctor very much.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yes.
So you, as far as work is concerned, you actually started working at Lehman's, as you said, when you were a student. Huh?
Actually, my first job was at the Royal Store.
Okay, that was
a department store. It was similar to, it was a 5 to dime store. It was similar to the Stedman store. Stedman store was down the street a little further.
What was it on Aberdeen, or?
No, it was on King Street.
King Street, okay.
Yeah. Yes, the Royal Store was on King Street, and I worked there part-time, on most likely a Saturday, because it was when I was going to school. I was probably 14. And the Royal Store was in between Lehman's shoe store, which is still a shoe store now, right next to the post office.
That's King's.
Yes, King Street. And it was in between that and the Royal Bank of Canada, which of course is relocated just on the next block. My second job when I was 15 was at George Ramey's little grocery store in Riverview.
Oh, okay.
And I earned for a 40-hour week, I earned $8. And I don't know how much, I think it was 25 cents an hour at the Royal Store. which wasn't very much.
Did you have to walk there to get there at this time? Or?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
oh yes. We walked everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, there's not too much transportation.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I guess we all stayed slim at that time. We did a lot of
A lot
walking.
of walking.
And then I guess it was the third job that I had, and I was still going to school, was Lehman Shoe Store.
So, excuse me, after you finished school.
After I finished school, well, I was married
Oh,
in
okay.
1951.
Mhm.
Then later on, my son was born. And later on, I worked at Lehman Shoe Store
Store again.
again.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
So there was a period then when you weren't working?
Yes, there was a
okay,
period
good.
of time when I wasn't working, but then I think I was called in to work again at Lehman's.
Okay.
And later on, then at Ernst Jewelry, so that's later on in my lifetime.
Okay, so yes, you'd be...
Yes, that was in the, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say your young fellow would be older then.
Yes, he would be older at that time. Yes, old enough. But you see, when he was quite young
Mhm.
and going to school, then he'd go, if I was working, he would go up to my mom and dad's home
Okay. Yeah.
after school.
After school,
so,
yeah. And
So they'd look after
from
him
there,
while
yeah.
I was working.
Mhm.
So then I worked at Wood Brothers, which was the Ashkin store. That was also in between. That today, not today. No, today I don't know what's there really today. But after Ashkin's, it became Wood Brothers.
Mhm.
Then after that, it became LaHave Stationers.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
Yep.
it was in that block.
Block there, yes, okay. Any improvement in salary?
Somewhat.
Somewhat. Yeah.
Somewhat, yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Lehman Shoe Store, of course, it was $26, I think, a week, $24 or $26 a week.
Okay. And then I understand you got married in 1951?
51.
51,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
And of course continued to live here in Bridgewater?
Yes, yes, on Aberdeen Road.
On Aberdeen Road
Yes,
still,
yes, we
okay.
had a little cottage on
Mhm.
Aberdeen Road.
Okay. And you just have the one son?
One son,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
In the 60s, I belonged to the Bridgewater Hospital Chorus.
Oh, yes, okay.
'Cause I love to sing.
Sing? All right.
And in 1979, we formed the South Shore Genealogical Society at my church.
Okay.
And
Now, your church, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, okay? I understand that you became involved with that around 1958, 1959.
yes.
I find it strange that the church was here in Bridgewater, of all places.
It wasn't up until that time,
Mhm.
no. In 1958, a couple young missionaries
Mhm.
came, and they taught us about the church. And the headquarters are
Mhm.
in Salt Lake City, Utah,
Mhm.
in the United States. And so they taught us. They were stationed here in Bridgewater for a short time, but they didn't have too much success.
Mhm.
And when they came to our home, they taught us, but we were not quite ready to accept
Mhm.
the teachings, although we did believe. So then, pardon me, in 1959, a year later, those first missionaries, they were taken out of the area because of poor reception and no converts. But in 1959, when new missionaries were put into the area, they taught us again, And we were ready. We were ready at that time, and in July of that year, we became members of the first members of that church on the whole south shore of Nova Scotia.
Oh, okay.
Yes. There was one lady who lived in Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
She had been baptized just about a month before we were. And so after that, then the membership started to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And we would hold services in back in Wildville, in the orchard.
Mm-hmm.
We held services in the old museum in town, which was just behind and between Pleasant Street and King Street.
Mm-hmm.
It was behind the Royal Bank of Canada. And you could see it from the street as you looked up, because there was a vacant lot in between. And there's where we met for until I think it was sold or something happened.
Yeah.
And then we met in the Oak Hill Schoolhouse for some time, and of course gradually the membership grew, and we raised money to build, because we needed a building of our own.
Mm-hmm.
So we raised money.
How did you raise money?
Through rummage. We had one rummage sale that I know of, and then a lot of pantry sales. Mm-hmm. And then we bought a strip of land from Ruby Wong.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite a large strip of land up on the hill, Aberdeen Road. It's now 335
Mm-hmm.
Aberdeen. So upon selling a couple of lots, house lots,
mm-hmm.
then we raised our 40%. Salt Lake paid the 60%, and we paid 40% of the cost to build the first phase of the chapel.
Mm-hmm.
So the first phase, well, now we have the three phases.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of three phases, so all phases have been completed quite a while ago.
Yeah.
And there is where the South Shore Genealogical Society was formed in 1979. And I was the first president, and eventually, it wasn't too long before we moved to Lunenburg.
Yes.
The mayor allowed us to have a couple of rooms in the town hall in Lunenburg, so it has advanced since then.
Well, you've started on Aberdeen Road, and certainly your later years have been spent
back on Aberdeen Road, yes, in the home built in 1935.
Yeah, well, there you go. Hey, yes. Obviously, your experience growing up in Bridgewater has been a good one for you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, as good as it could be.
Yeah.
You know, at that time, there were no computers, all these advancement in technology. There was nothing at that time. We had telephone. I could remember having a radio that ran by tube.
Oh, okay.
That when we used to listen to the Shadow Nose and the Lone Ranger and Ma Perkins and the Guiding Light and things like that. But when the tube started to die, we'd have to put our ears against the radio, the speaker of the radio, to hear anything, and then all of a sudden then it would die.
Yeah.
And it would be quite a while before we got a new tube for that radio. But yes, there's been a lot of water on the bridge, and as a matter of fact, at that time, there wasn't a diverse number of occupations that you could have. There was either a nurse or a secretary or a teacher or a clerk in a store. So there weren't very many occupations that you could take
Get
up
into
at that time. So I did go. I did mention about being in the hospital chorus there
You
for
did,
a while.
yes.
I also was interested in sewing, being a seamstress. So Miss Deal, who also lived in Aberdeen Road, she taught classes at the school, night classes at the school, and I took night course. It was a three year course, but she felt that I earned it in 2 years, so I got my diploma in 2 years, and even made fur coats, taking fur jackets from old fur coats that I take apart, get the best out of it, and sew them together, and made fur jackets. And I'd make the children, little Helga, I made her clothes, and my son, and we'd march out on the stage at the end of the year and display, and it was rather fun. And then later on I took up typing and bookkeeping. Yes, so.
But would you have done that at school?
That was
or
in the
privately?
evening. That was in the evening.
Yeah.
They were also at BHS, and they were evening courses, and no charge. No charge for any of that. Yes.
So you certainly took advantage of most things that Bridgewater had to offer.
Well, a few things, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, a few things I wish that I would have taken advantage of, like the Glee Club in school. I never took part in that, and I don't know why I didn't. I guess because I had to get home after school right away. You know, it was orders from headquarters, so I never really took part in that. And when I look back over the old pictures of the Glee Club, I said, why? I was so sorry that I hadn't been able to do that. Yes.
The hospital chorus, the Bridgewater Hospital Chorus.
Yes, that was established in the 1960s, and went on. I don't know how. Probably 1975. I'm not quite sure. I wasn't in it at that time, but up to 1972, I was in the hospital. Yes, I have quite a number of pictures of that.
Those experiences.
Yes, of the groups. Yes.
Yeah. And basically you would sing in the chorus itself. Yeah. That was a great experience, actually.
Yes, it was.
I joined in the 70s, the late 70s.
You joined in the late 70s, did you?
Yeah. Well, it's been very interesting talking to you. And I certainly appreciate you taking the time to come and speak to us. And
well, it's been a blessing and a privilege to be here, and I hope I've said something that will spark the interest of...
Well, I've certainly found you interesting, and I'm sure others will
thank you
as well.
Thank you very much
for
having me.
Thank you very much.